Hello mind mappers and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over Mastery by Robert Greene, a really amazing book on essentially finding your purpose, the learning process, and what it takes to be successful in almost any domain. I'm going to get directly into the introduction here today. I've pulled out a quote that I believe gives us a good overview of what we can expect to learn today. In many ways, the movement from one level of intelligence to another can be considered as kind of a ritual transformation. As you progress, old ideas and perspectives die, and as new powers are unleashed, you are initiated into higher levels of seeing the world. Consider mastery as an invaluable tool in guiding you through this transformation process. So really we're just getting into what mastery really is, and when it all boils down to it, it's a transformation process, a kind of continual evolution towards mastery. The book is designed to lead you from the lowest levels to the highest. It will help you initiate you into the first step, discovering your life's task or vocation, and how to carve out a path that will lead you to its fulfillment on various levels. It will advise you how to exploit to the fullest your apprenticeship, the various strategies of observation and learning that will serve you best in this phase. How to find the perfect mentors, how to decipher the unwritten codes on political behavior, how to cultivate social intelligence, and finally, how to recognize when it's time to leave the apprenticeship nest and strive out for yourself, entering the active creative. It will show you how to continue the learning process on a higher level. It will reveal timeless strategies for creative problem solving, for keeping your mind fluid and adaptable. It will show you how to access more unconscious and primitive layers of intelligence and how to endure the inevitable barbs of envy that will come your way. It will spell out the powers that will come to you through mastery, pointing you in the direction of that intuitive inside feel for your field. Finally, it will initiate you into a philosophy, a way of thinking that will make it easier to follow this path. So again, really coming back to this, mastery is all about a transformation process. And as Robert said here, there's a lot of different things that we need to take into account when we're striving to become a master in anything. Today, we're going to be talking about the transformation process. And I think that Greene illustrates just the path of self-growth here perfectly. This is really what we're all about on this channel, is kind of transforming ourselves down this pathway of self-growth. And I think mastery is a really great framework for that. Whether you're trying to become a really great tradesperson or you're trying to become a really great entrepreneur, or whatever domain you're trying to become successful in, mastery is a great framework for that. Movement from one level of intelligence, skill, or ability to another is just like a snake shedding its skin. It's kind of like you have to forget a little bit of what you originally thought and be willing to move past and become something almost completely new. And that's a really difficult process. It's a process that requires change. It requires you being a little bit uncomfortable. And we're going to talk about some techniques to help you get through that process during this mind map. Again, those old perspectives, the old ideas, and the practices, they die off, and it allows you to breathe life into the new ideas, the new practices, the new way of seeing the world. This process, of course, is not easy. It comes with its own challenges, ones that we've all felt before. It's mandatory on the path to self-actualization, though. If you really want to bring your true self forward, if you really want to live to your highest level of purpose, mastery is the way to do that. It's a framework and a guide to help you through that difficult change process. And today, together, we're going to explore the lives and stories of many different masters. This is one of the great things that I think Robert is so good at, is bringing us stories of people who have been in the position that potentially we're in right now before us, and using their journey and using their information to inform ourselves. And inform ourselves not only with what we should do, but also with the pitfalls that we should try to avoid. Some of the masters that we're going to be looking at today include Leonardo da Vinci, Charles Darwin, and Benjamin Franklin, among many, many others. we're all going to explore how to craft our own path to mastery, as I said, in any different domain. Whether you're a Leonardo da Vinci or a Benjamin Franklin, both very different paths, but what you'll notice is a lot of the framework to mastery ended up being quite the same. We're going to start with finding your life's task or your vocation or your purpose, and then we're going to move into the learning strategies that are going to serve you during what Greene calls the apprenticeship phase, exploring what it means to be a constant learner or someone who is going through the apprenticeship phase. What does it take to be a really great apprentice? And then when you're ready to move into the phase right after apprenticeship, where you're kind of striking it out on your own and creating your own, whether it's business, whether it's art, whatever it might be for you, when you're moving out on your own, when you're done your apprenticeship phase, what does it mean to continue to get better even when you don't have someone you're apprenticing under? What does that stage of learning involve? That's what we're going to talk about here today. Before I get into some of the great ideas that I pulled out of the book, let's talk a little bit about mind mapping. Mind mapping can help you get the most out of these mind maps and get the most out of learning, period. Mind mapping is a great way to explore information and move the different nodes of the mind map back and forth to get the most out of your study. You can get the most out of these mind maps by following along, of course. You can find the process of how I mind map, plus all 50 plus mind map templates, including this one, at the link down below. Following along with the mind maps is going to help you learn more, remember better, and apply these books to your life. And if you're looking for a little bit of a shortcut and you want to move directly into what I think are some of the best ideas on particular topics, like learning, like mind mapping, like habits or goal setting, you can get those at themindmapguy.com, the link down below, and I call them my masterclasses. I take dozens of books and boil them down into 1 2-hour-long masterclass for you to kind of skip the line and not have to do the hundreds of hours of reading that go into each masterclass. Now let's talk about destiny. Let us state it in the following way. At your birth, a seed is planted. That seed is your uniqueness. It wants to grow, transform itself, and flower to its full potential. It has a natural, assertive energy. Your life's task is to bring that seed to flower, to express your uniqueness through your work. You have a destiny to fulfill. The stronger you feel and maintain it as a force, a voice, or whatever form it takes, the greater the chance for fulfilling your life's task and achieving mastery. What weakens this force, what makes you not feel it or even doubt its existence, is the degree to which you have succumbed to another force in life, social pressures to conform. This counterforce can be very powerful. You want to fit into a group. Unconsciously, you might feel that what makes you different is actually embarrassing or painful. At all costs, you must avoid such a fate. The process of following your life's task all the way to mastery can essentially begin at any point in life. The hidden force within you is always there and ready to be engaged. So really our life task, in my view, is actualization. Of course, this is really kind of everything that we talk about on the channel. Actualization starts with you, what you feel called to bring forth, right? There's no right or wrong answer with what career you should have or what path you should take in life. But Robert points out here that it's kind of an inner uniqueness. It's something that at birth or wherever it eventually pops up for us, we feel called towards. And what better to actually chase than that feeling? He says that we're kind of sometimes missing that feeling. And if you don't feel that right now, it's very likely that you're feeling kind of social pressures to conform. And I think that's true. It's essentially true for all of the coaching clients that I talk to when we're talking about starting a business or etc. A lot of them have ideas based on what they think is going to be successful rather than based on what they truly enjoy or what they truly feel called to bring forth. So actualization starts with you, what it feels like you're called to bring forth, and you want to ignore everything else. The first step is always inward. You search the past for signs of that inner voice or force, especially if you're not feeling it right now. It's good to go back to a time when you're in your teens potentially or before social pressure really started to kind of take a hold of you. What did you want to be? You clear away the other voices that might confuse you, your parents and your peers, and you look for an underlying pattern, a core to your character that you must understand as deeply as possible. Now, what I would invite you to do here, taking from this passage, is let's take the time. Let's go back. Step number 1 might be take 5 deep breaths and let your running mind ease. It's very likely that you have a bunch of these types of thoughts running on a loop in your mind right now, even while watching this video. Step number 2 might be to visit your past in your mind's eye. As I said, I really think that the teenage years are a good place to look at. That's when I personally felt a lot less social pressure to conform, and that's when I can really get in touch with what I truly wanted to bring forth in the world. So some questions that you might use would be things like, what have you been passionate about in the past? What's brought you joy and contentment? Or one that I truly love is, who do you most want to help? Because you can kind of bring that forth. You can decide what medium or what message you're going to bring to those people to help them. Who do you want to help the most? A good starting point here is, what's a past version of yourself? What was something that you struggled with for a very long time that if you had a mentor, if you had someone that could teach you, if you had some kind of a training program, what would that look like? That might be a good place to start. Step number 3 is to search the answers that you've come up with and make sure that they're your own. If you want to be an artist or you want to be a lawyer, just make sure that this is actually your idea and not something that someone else has told you at some point along the way. And what I really love here as well is that Robert says the process can begin at any point in your life. Whether you're in your early 20s or your late 60s, your life's task will always be there, even if you've ignored it for years in lieu of societal pressure. It's important that you fan the flame and remember that you must see your career or vocational path more as of a journey with twists and turns rather than a straight line. I really love what Scott Adams says here in his books. Essentially, he says that skill stacking is one of the ways that you can actually leverage kind of your past experiences to bring forth something brand new into the world. I recommend that you go and check out his book, How to Fail at Almost Anything and Still Win Big. What a great title on this channel to learn more about skill stacking. Our next idea here is apprenticeship. The principle is simple, and it must be ingrained deeply in your mind. This is a big piece of masteries, this idea of apprenticeship as the learning model. The goal of an apprenticeship is not money, a good position, a title, or a diploma, but rather the transformation of your mind and character. The first transformation on the way to mastery. You enter a career as an outsider, you're naive and full of misconceptions about this new world. Your head is full of dreams and fantasies about the future. Your knowledge of the world is subjective, based on emotions, insecurities, and limited experience. So this is very interesting, right? We have an idea of a career we want to get into. I know that I had this when I was inside of personal training. I would take courses, I would read books, and I would think, okay, I know what people want, I know what people need. But when I really got into the field and I really started realizing, wow, it's a lot less about the exercises that people are going to do and the food that they're going to eat, and it's much more psychological. So I had these conceptions that if I created the right training program, if I created the right food for the people, what would end up happening is, of course, the successful result that they wanted, which was they would either lose weight or get into better shape. What ended up really happening was it took a lot of speaking to the person, a lot of diving into kind of what created the patterns that they're currently falling into, and really understanding habits and psychology at a base level. That's one really good example of you enter a career as an outsider and you're naive, you're full of misconceptions. You don't know how the world really works. And that's what apprenticeship can help you through. Slowly, you will ground yourself in reality, in the objective world represented by the knowledge and skills that make people successful in it. You will learn how to work with others and handle criticism. In the process, you will transform yourself from someone who is impatient and scattered into someone who is disciplined and focused. With a mind that can handle complexity, in the end, you will master yourself and all of your weaknesses. So after we've identified our life work, after we've identified our destiny, so to speak, what do we do next? Well, we apprentice. Greene shares all sorts of stories about people who we think of as great today starting as apprenticeships. They started out just as we do, naive, with ideas of the world that kind of we're getting into. As I said, we are full of these misconceptions obscured by our dreams, our fantasies, and what we've read and what we think we know. This is just a pretty way of saying that you don't really know what's possible and you don't know what isn't possible. Putting it short, you don't know what you don't know, what not to do and what to do about that. That is why we're going to go through an apprenticeship, or why Robert and I are making a very good argument, I believe, about why starting with an apprenticeship is actually the best place that you can go. Instead of going to maybe college or spending a lot of time reading and studying, a really good place to start is with an apprenticeship or with a coaching relationship, I would say, is maybe a more modern way to do this. Finding someone or someones who can guide us through all of these misconceptions and lead us to the truth. 3 key strategies of apprenticeship that I took away from the book are deep observation. You need to watch the person as they work. So you kind of read between the lines, listen to what they say, but also watch what they do. Number 2 is skill acquisition, right? You need to be able to fail, and you need to be able to fail while someone else is watching so that they can tell you why. Number 3 is experimentation. This again is just going back to being comfortable being uncomfortable. Being willing to fail and being willing to try new things is a big part of apprenticeship. And I mean, apprenticeship is one of the reasons why apprenticeship is so good is because you can fail and not have to worry about that being catastrophic. This person has potentially already built up a big business. They don't have to worry too much about if you fail a couple of times. They understand it's part of the learning process. Whereas if you strike out on your own and you fail, it could be catastrophic for your business. Remember what Greene says in the beginning, though. We're not looking to impress people here. Apprenticeship is a time to be wrong, to look stupid, and to mess up, as I said. The more failure, honestly, the better. And I recommend that you check out Fail Fast, Fail Often on this channel, a really good book about how failure really leads to success. In the process, you will transform yourself from someone who is impatient and scattered into someone who is disciplined and focused, with a mind that can handle complexity. In the end, you will master yourself and all of your weaknesses. You're a craftsman, learning to adhere to the highest standards. For all of this, you must go through a careful apprenticeship. You cannot make anything worthwhile in this world unless you have first developed and transformed yourself. And I think that's honestly, that's a good axiom to keep in your mind. If you're trying to help other people, a really good place to start is, have you helped yourself? I wouldn't be comfortable doing personal training, for example, if I wasn't able to actually make a big transformation myself in the beginning. So that's one of the reasons that I actually got into personal training, was I felt like I was able to do it for myself, and I would like to help other people do it, and I had a little bit of success, and that was one way to get into it. Next, we're going to talk about the Wrights. On December 17th, 1903, Wilbur piloted their flying machine at Kitty Hawk for an impressive 59 seconds, the first manned, controlled, and powered flight in history. Side note, 59 seconds. That's pretty crazy. Over the years, they would improve the design, and flight times would increase. For the other competitors in the race, it was a complete mystery how 2 men without any engineering or aeronautical experience or financial backing had managed to get there first. The story of the Wright brothers really is just the story of mastery. They were the first to ever build and to pilot an aircraft, and 59 seconds back then was a big deal. They were up against people with advanced degrees and almost unlimited finances. Yet these 2 brothers with little experience and almost no finances dominated the race to create the first aircraft. And how did they do it? Well, as Robert points out, they followed the path to mastery. When we step back far enough, mastery in any domain looks very similar to the craftsman analogy. Through intense labor on your part, you gain a feel for what you're creating. In doing this work, you see and feel the flaws in design. What you're trying to create will not magically take off after a few creative bursts of inspiration, but you must be slowly evolved through a step-by-step process as you correct the flaws. In the end, you win through superior craftsmanship, not marketing. The craftsmanship involves creating something with an elegant and simple structure, getting the most out of your materials, a high form of creativity. So that's one of the things that actually it worked in the Wright brothers' favor. They were up against these people with these advanced degrees, and they were making it extremely complicated without testing. They were doing a lot of kind of drawing on paper and using finances to get the right materials and etc. But what they weren't doing was actually getting out there and trying to fly. That's kind of one of the main takeaways that I got from the Wright. Creating something truly great doesn't happen in one take. Often, and especially now, we see the end results of someone's success. But it's easy to forget how many iterations or planes with 6 wings they had to make before they were truly successful. A side note here is that failure isn't necessarily good in and of itself, but our reaction to failure, iteration, and improvement can be. Right? The idea here is we need to win through superior craftsmanship. And the way we get better at craftsmanship is failing and learning from the mistakes. For example, as a blacksmith, why didn't the blade cut the way I expected it to? Did I heat the metal up too hot? Did I not design the handle the right way? And etc. You need to spend time feeling the process out and learning from the process rather than just theorizing. You need to get into kind of the trenches, so to speak. And that's why apprenticeship is so helpful. Next, we're going to talk about 20,000. And this is not going to be the one that I think a lot of you want to hear, but I think it's the one that a lot of us need. In our culture, we tend to denigrate practice. We want to imagine that great feats occur naturally, that they are a sign of someone's genius or superior talent. Getting to a high level of achievement through practice seems so banal, so uninspiring. Besides, we don't want to have to think about the 10,000 to 20,000 hours that go into such mastery. These values of ours are oddly counterproductive. They cloak from us the fact that almost everyone can reach such heights through tenacious effort, something that should actually encourage us all. It's time to reverse this prejudice against conscious effort and see the powers that we gain through the practice and discipline as eminently inspiring and even miraculous. So really what I took away here was, are you or am I willing to commit 10,000 or 20,000 hours to becoming a master at our crafts? To me, that's a pretty scary number, to be honest, even though I've read 10,000 hours as kind of the base level for mastery. Often we don't think about how long it might actually take to be great. I believe it's scary for 2 different reasons. Number 1, obviously the number is large. That's, on the face of it, the scariest thing. We don't want to commit that much time to something that might not work out. And the other scary part, if we're true to ourselves, is that the number means that anyone can do it, with a lot of effort and sacrifice. As Robert says here, we want to imagine that great feats occur naturally, that they're a sign of someone's genius or superior talent, or perhaps they were born with it or given it, or any number of other excuses that we tend to come up with. Anything other than the fact that I could do this too, but I have to put in a real tenacious effort. Overcoming your fear for 20,000 hours. The number is large, but remember, we started this entire journey with connecting to your life's work. If you're truly connected to that 20,000 hours, it seems like a very small price to pay. Anyone can do it, but only with sacrifice. I encourage you to reframe the sacrifice. The path to mastery is one filled with flow and fulfillment. Actually, the 20,000 hours is the success. If we could turn that around and say, if you could spend 20,000 hours focusing, studying, mastering your craft, filled with flow and fulfillment, would you want to do that? And of course the answer is yes. It doesn't have to be the difficult kind of pushing or pulling that we think of when we think of studying naturally. If we're truly following our real purpose, our real calling in life, we can actually have a path to mastery that's filled with flow and fulfillment. For more information on flow and what that means and how to set up your environment best to get into flow, I recommend that you check out the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi on this channel. The state of flow that we'll find on the way to mastery is actually one of the most joyful that we can have in our lives. So let's do a little bit of math. How do we get to 20,000 hours? Well, if there's 52 weeks in the year and there's 40 hours in a week, let's say, that we can work, it'll take us about 10 years to get to 20,000 hours. That's a good place to start. We need to be careful though, because we're not all able to get 40 hours a week in, because we're maybe working another job or perhaps we've got other obligations. The thing is, there's two different options here. Are you truly on the path to mastery if you're not in an apprenticeship that can support your living? So if you're starting a business or if you're working for someone, are you truly on the path to mastery if you're not in an apprenticeship that can support your living? If you are trying to do this as a side hustle, it's going to take you quite a lot of years to be truly a master at anything. So I always recommend that people really dive in. If it's your true calling, move into it, go and live in a small apartment or whatever you need to do, lower your living expenses so that you can get onto the path of mastery. I've done that in my life, and it's definitely paid off. It was well worth it for me. Number 2 is to flip the numbers. Find 10 or 20 hours a week instead of 40. Cut back on the mindless habits that you currently have and turn them into deliberate practice. A few hours of Netflix every night quickly turns into mastery. If you, instead of watching the Netflix, you end up going and actually practicing or actually working on your craft. Our next idea here comes from Y Combinator. They coach their apprentices in all the principles that they had learned along the way. The benefit in looking for new applications of existing technology and the needs that are not being met, the importance of maintaining the closest possible relationships with your customers, the need to keep ideas as simple and realistic as possible, the value of creating a superior product and a winning through craftsmanship, as opposed to fixating on making money. As their apprentices learned, they learned as well, and oddly enough, they discovered that what really makes successful entrepreneurs is not the nature of the idea or the university that they went to, but their actual character, their willingness to adapt their idea and take advantage of possibilities that they had not first imagined. That is precisely the trait, the fluidity of mind, that Graham had identified in himself and the other investors. The other essential character trait was supreme tenacity. So really what we're thinking about here is what truly makes successful entrepreneurs. Y Combinator is known for helping create some of the most successful new entrepreneurs. They run a training program very much in line with this book, in my opinion, with access to high-level thinkers and business builders and all the ideas and all the learnings that have helped those people out. That's kind of the reason why you would go into Y Combinator, is you actually get to kind of form an apprenticeship with a successful entrepreneur. So what have they found makes the most successful entrepreneurs? Probably they've got more experience than anyone in this domain. It's not necessarily that the business idea that they have or the schooling that they've had over their years or even potentially the resources that they've got. Instead, it's about their willingness to adapt their idea, take advantage of opportunities that they hadn't first imagined. And really underscoring here, Naval Ravikant, one of my favorite business thinkers, says something like this: ideas can fail, but good entrepreneurs do not. Ideas can fail, but good entrepreneurs do not. So what can we learn here if we're not entrepreneurs, right? The idea is that failure kind of breeds success, and really all we need is kind of these two different ingredients, with being willing to adapt and essentially having this supreme tenacity to come back to the plate after we've missed the swing multiple times. What can we learn here if we're not entrepreneurs, though? I know not everyone on the channel is looking to start their own business. The truth is that willingness to change, to learn, and to adapt is a secret sauce for success in any domain. If you're not constantly willing to be learning, forgetting, and failing, it's very unlikely that you're going to be world-class at anything, and it's also very unlikely that you're going to be paid at a world-class level, even if you are going to be someone who's working at a job or working at a career. Our final idea here in mastery is desires. Mastery is not a question of genetics or luck, but of following your natural inclinations and the deep desire that stirs from within you. Everyone has such inclinations. This is really going back to our original point on destiny, underscoring it again. This desire within you is not motivated by egotism or sheer ambition for power, both of which are emotions that can honestly get in the way of mastery. It is instead a deep expression of something natural, something that marked you at birth as unique. In following your inclinations and moving towards mastery, you make a great contribution to society, enriching it with discoveries and insight, and making the most of the diversity in nature among human society. It is in fact the height of selfishness to merely consume what others create and to retreat into a shell of limited goals and immediate pleasures. Alienating yourself from your inclinations can only lead to pain and disappointment in the long run, and a sense that you have been wasted something unique, which is kind of this entire experience that we have as human beings. This pain will be expressed in bitterness and envy, and you will not recognize the true source of your depression. So the idea here, the final kind of underscore on destiny, on purpose, on desires, is that we're all unique, and that's the key to mastery. 20,000 hours and being willing to fail are both difficult things. They're both parts of the mastery process, though, that we've spoken about already in the video. The idea here, with following your inner calling, isn't necessarily even that you're going to be innately good at that when it first starts. The idea actually is that if you feel a natural calling, you'll likely be able to stick through the hours and the hard work and the failure that it will take to master that domain. So the idea is, don't necessarily start what you're already good at, although that's a good idea just because you are probably already naturally inclined towards that. But really dig into, what do you really feel called to do? Who do you feel called to help? What did you want to do when you were a teenager? Those are both really good places to start. And if you can find that, you're going to be willing to kind of push through some of the difficulties that you're going to endure along the way. Mastery as your highest life's calling. Through all the stories of mastery in the book, one thing stuck out the most. Where would we be if great people didn't follow their inclinations and be willing to suffer through the mastery process? Sure, getting a job and having a relaxing life is pleasurable for us. Maybe not as fulfilling, and maybe we do have kind of this low-grade type of depression because of that. It's probably not as fulfilling, but it's certainly more pleasurable. But as we read their stories, it stands out to me that mastery is our highest calling in this life, maybe even the reason that we're here, self-actualizing and bringing humanity up along the way. To me, that's a worthy goal. And this was Mastery by Robert Greene, one of the favorite books that I've read in recent years. I want to thank you for being with me here today. I encourage you to go and check out some of the other books that I've referenced here in the video. You can find them all on this channel. And as well, I recommend that you go and check out the mindmapguy.com. There's a link down below. There's a ton of great resources on there, as well as kind of the master classes that I've done, hundreds of hours of reading, and distill them down into 1 2-hour long masterclass to help you get the most out of the best ideas from the best books, from the best authors in a simple 2-hour long masterclass. I hope to see you there, and I'll see you in another video.